You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. All right, y'all, it's LSU Bama week. Brian Kelly was at the podium for his weekly Monday presser to preview the game. And this was not altogether unexpected, but still disappointing when we got the confirmation on the defensive backs, notably Zy Alexander. But LSU is going to be shorthanded in the secondary.
Deuce is not available. Denver's not available. Zy is not available. Ashton Stamps will practice today.
So we did not expect Deuce Chestnut or Denver Harris to be available. They've not been with the team. We've talked about that enough. Zy Alexander, the word we got after the Army game was that injury was serious, could be season-ending. Did not expect him to play against Alabama. Brian Kelly confirmed that. So, what do you do? Here was Brian Kelly.
They've been around long enough now. I mean, you're into the season now, 8 games. They had, some time here in camp and some mid-year enrollment. So to say that they're inexperienced, yes, they haven't played a lot of SEC games, but they know what they're doing. They understand our techniques. They know what's expected of them. So we're in a position where we feel comfortable and confident that they can go out and get the job done.
Here's the bad news. The bad news is you're down your best cornerback in an already bad secondary. Zy Alexander had been your best guy. There's no other way to say it. And now you're going to have to count on a triumvirate of young players behind Sage Ryan and LaTerrence Welch, and that includes Javen Toviano and Jeremiah Hughes and Ashton Stamps, who you heard Brian Kelly say there. Muse, can you play 26, please? But Brian Kelly pointed out something that we talked about the Monday after the Army game. And it's, yes, this is a little bit of sunshines and rainbows and lipstick on a pig, but these are young players that were talented enough to get a scholarship offer to LSU, and they need to be ready to go.
They're elite players coming out of high school. And now you're putting them in a position where they just have to be confident and trust their technique and trust what we've taught them. And so now it's taking that trust and putting it in from preparation to performance and playing emotionally at a level which allows them to do their job. And I think we've been at it long enough now where these guys are ready to go. They got no choice. But these guys are ready to play. And they're young. Many have said inexperienced. I get it. They haven't played a lot of SEC games. But these guys are really good players. And they'll get out there and they'll compete for LSU.
We gave a couple examples of this last week. 2013, Rashard Robinson. He was late getting access through the clearinghouse. He didn't practice at all in fall camp. Showed up the week of the opener against TCU and boom, was on the field in Jerry World. Dude was like 160 pounds soaking wet. He was a pencil running around making plays. That year was a true freshman, locked down Mike Evans in that game in 2013 in the rain in Tiger Stadium. 2017, Greedy Williams, who redshirted as a freshman, was not good enough to play as a true freshman, redshirted. 2017, you got an injury, you got a suspension, and then boom, just like that, he's starting against BYU, gets a pick, goes on to have an All-American season. If you're good enough to be recruited by LSU, you got to be good enough to play. Again, I understand. Your first significant action on the road in Tuscaloosa against Bama is not ideal, but you have no choice at this point. But just to point out where they are, back on September the 7th, Brian Kelly was asked about Javen Toviano. Remember, Toviano was a guy who was here in spring, and they loved him in spring. But they moved him all over. They tried him at nickel. They tried him at dime. They tried him at the boundary corner. They played him at safety. They just experimented a ton with Toviano in spring. And then he wasn't out there in the opener, and you saw all the struggles at corner, and the question was like, Coach, where's Javen Toviano? Remember, this was September the 7th. Here was the answer.
We like Javion. We're trying to bring him along at the nickel position, and I think it's a process, that we're involved in. And these are the tough decisions that you're trying to make. Is he somebody that can play more than 4 games at a high level for you? and contribute where you don't redshirt him? Or is it he's going to get right to that threshold and maybe a couple of special teams performances? So we're not going to do anything until he's ready, and he's not quite ready yet, but we really like his upside. And when he's ready, we're going to play him.
That was 2 months ago. When he's ready, we're going to play him. That was 2 months ago. Well, ready or not, you got to play him. Kelly told you back on September 7th, they were trying him at nickel. It's safe to say that Sage Ryan's going to be your boundary corner. We'll probably see LaTerrence Welch or maybe Ashton Stamps. You're going to see Jeremiah Hughes and maybe Toviano there in the nickel, how it's all going to play out. But ultimately, you're going to have a lot of young dudes running around in that secondary, and it's time to grow up in a hurry. The other really bad news that Brian Kelly gave on Monday was about Mekhi Wingo.
Mekhi had surgery. He is out for the season.
Out for the season.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I would say this. The projections are 6 weeks, so we'll see where that goes.
There is no sugarcoating this. Mekhi Wingo is your number 18. He was an All-American a season ago. He's a veteran interior defensive lineman, and you would love to have Mekhi Wingo ready to roll in Tuscaloosa against an offensive line that at Alabama that has really struggled this year. Alabama, their offensive line is super vulnerable. I don't know if you're aware of this. Alabama has allowed 35 sacks through 8 games. Let me put this in the context for you. That is 126th in the country. There are 4 teams in college football, 4, that have allowed more sacks than Alabama. Northwestern, Wake Forest, Colorado, and Old Dominion. That's it. 4 Alabama, the Alabama Crimson Tide. 4 teams have allowed more sacks than Alabama. You have an opportunity. The fewest amount of sacks they've allowed in a conference game this year is 4. You have a real opportunity to go wreck stuff with Jalen Milroe back there. It would have been way better if you had Mekhi Wingo. You're not going to have Mekhi Wingo, so you need Jordan Jefferson to step up. Brian Kelly said today that Jordan Jefferson has actually been their highest graded interior lineman this year. Great. You'd love to have Mekhi Wingo. You don't. The guys you have need to go make it happen against a vulnerable Alabama offensive line. Look, y'all, we could sit here and focus on all the guys that aren't going to be there defensively, and it's legitimate. And Zy Alexander is your best cover corner, period. You don't have him. Mekhi Wingo was an All-American a year ago. You don't have him. Greg Brooks was the glue of your defense. He was your most veteran, most consistent secondary piece. He was your quarterback of the secondary. You don't have him. You would undeniably be better with all 3 of those guys. You don't have them. And I'm still going to say today the same thing I said the day the season kicked off. When you have an offense like LSU does, and this was before I knew LSU was going to have literally the number 1 offense in college football. This is just when I thought they were going to be really good on offense. They're elite. The point is now the same as it was then. You don't have to be elite defensively. You just have to be good enough to complement a great offense. You remember that? I've reminded you enough of it. But we went through every year of the college football playoff and looked at the national champion. And there were only 3 that were in the top 15 in pass defense. That great 2019 LSU team, their pass defense ranked in the 50s. The 2020 Bama team ranked in the 70s in pass defense. You don't need to be great defensively. You just got to get enough stops to complement your elite offense. Can LSU do that Saturday? Can this shorthanded defense do that in Tuscaloosa on Saturday? Can you be good enough to get enough stops to make Alabama play catch-up and get out of their game? That's the big question. We'll get the answer on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. Tigers, Brian Kelly confirms, will be shorthanded defensively. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.